Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. Today is Take 5 time with Steven Travers, and we have a very special guest, Caren Horstmeyer, who was an All-American player at the collegiate level. She was a coach at the collegiate level, and she's a Hall of Famer in so many different ways and so big a part of women's basketball. And we're going to talk to her about her life and her career and what she's doing now, of course. Some other things that are not related directly with basketball, but an amazing life, and we're going to hear about that in just a second. Before we do, though, I would like to make mention of the Lee Haney games. Lee Haney, the former Mr. Olympia, 8 times, right? He, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronnie Coleman, multiple Mr. Olympia champions. Well, he has a pre-qualifier for the Mr. Olympia, and it's at the Lee Haney games where you can attend and you can see some of the great events that are a part of it, not just bodybuilding, but there's weightlifting, there's deadlifting, actually, to be specific, calisthenics. There's a kids camp that you have for there where you have fit kids. There's a dance and a cornhole competition, everything for anyone under the sun that wants to be athletic and be a part of that world. The games are going to be held on November 1st. It's a Saturday, so the first weekend in November. And on Thursday, October 30th, there's a charity golf event to help the Haney Harvest House. Obviously, for underprivileged kids in the area, Lee Haney's passion is to do everything he can for that. But if you would like information about the games themselves, if you want to be a participant in any way, shape, or form, if you just want to help or you just want to watch, go to LeeHaneyGames.com for details. That's LeeHaneyGames.com. We appreciate your participation. And the event itself, like I said, is a pre-qualifier for Mr. Olympia. It is serious, but it's also plenty of fun and a worthwhile event. Steven, there are very rare occasions where you bring somebody that has the talent, the skill set, and the athleticism to be able to come onto the show and talk to us for an hour or two. But in this specific, this is the first female that we've had. So first and foremost, Caren, we want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here with the guys. But we're going to talk about a lot of things that guys are interested in, especially when it comes to sports, athletics, and how it was able to affect you and your life. Steven, first and foremost, though, I'd like you to properly introduce Caren because you have a relationship with her and have known her for years.
Yes, thank you, Harper. Well, Caren Horstmeyer is one of the groundbreaking women of the post-Title IX era, and one of the first women who was able to take full advantage of what Title IX did in the United States in the late 70s and early 80s. After a magnificent high school career in Northern California, she was an All-American for the Santa Clara Broncos. She played professionally in Greece. She went on to become one of the most successful women's basketball coaches in the nation at Santa Clara University, her alma mater. She also had involvement in coaching at the national level and then later at the University of California, Berkeley. Today, Caren is a very successful real estate agent in Marin County. And it is my pleasure to welcome a voice from the women's side. Caren Horstmeyer, welcome to Take 5 with Steven Travers.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Steven and Harper, for having me. This is very exciting. I'm honored I'm the first female that you guys will talk to and interview. I do need to clear up one thing. As much as I always wanted to be an All-American, I wasn't actually an All-American. However, I had a player who was, and actually from Marin County as well, Melissa King. And,
I met her.
Melissa King Fisher, amazing player.
Yeah, in fact, as I recall, she was with you when you addressed the Marin Old Time Athletes Dinner around 2003 or 4, if I recall correctly.
I think so. You're right. Yes.
Right. Well, anyway, thank you so much, and we're really happy to have you here. Harper, why don't you usually when Harper begins the questioning, it's usually based upon the male experience, and he usually starts by, well, what was the first baseball diamond like? Or did you first start off with a Hillerich and Bradsby baseball bat? In your case, it's going to be more like a basketball, but there are probably other sports. Let's get started with what got you interested in sports in the first place growing up.
Well, I think it was a little bit natural. My dad was a very good athlete, and my mom had no opportunities, but she was a good athlete. But there were no youth sports when I grew up. And now I'm dating myself, right? I'm aging myself, but there were no youth sports except Bobby Sox softball. So no CYO, nothing like that. If you're a girl, you would then, if you're going to play Little League, which I don't even remember in those days, they didn't even talk about that when I was going to school. My daughter did play Little League on the boys' teams, and she played basketball on the boys' teams. However, so there was none of that. I did play Bobby Sox softball. And I then got so into tennis, I was passionate. And my whole goal was I wanted to get a tennis scholarship to UCLA. I had an uncle who was a teacher at UCLA. I'd been there. I loved it. They taught me to play tennis. And so I grew from a tennis perspective. Basketball, I did not start until really late 8th grade, 9th grade. And once I played basketball in high school, and by then, for women, all the sports were pretty much available. I mean, we didn't have lacrosse or field hockey or those sports, but the typical sports, volleyball, basketball, softball, rowing. And so those were all available. So anyway, played my freshman year, fell in love with basketball. And then I just went crazy and played it all the time, practiced all the time, practiced with the boys and loved it. And if you were a good athlete, really the only place to play was with the boys, other than on the high school team. And at that time, we didn't really have club teams in Northern California. I believe there were club teams in Southern California, but that hadn't come here yet.
Yeah, like AAU and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that became a phenomenon maybe 20 years later. I wasn't even that aware of it myself until I became a sports writer for the LA, covering high school sports for the LA Times. And every girl and every guy that I talked about my club team. And that's when it became apparent to me there's something called travel ball, which did not exist in those days. I mean, my dad coached the Redwood High School Joe DiMaggio League baseball team in the summer. And that was essentially travel ball because we traveled all over the Bay Area and played all the best competition. But that was just my dad. Now, speaking of dads, you said your dad was a good athlete. Was he a good basketball player? And did he teach you the rudiments of the game?
He was a football player.
Okay.
Harper, not anywhere near that level. He played in high school and then in the military a little bit. But no, he wasn't a basketball player, but he loved basketball. And he would always go out when he was in the Air Force and all the guys would play. And he was physically 6'2". And so he knew I loved it so much. He'd take me out to the courts, we'd play. He'd always say, fake before you do anything, fake before you do anything. And my game really developed because of my father, who was awesome and so supportive. And then my mother also was extremely supportive of what I did athletically. In those days, you could play a lot of sports. I played a lot of sports in high school. And these days now, because of club, etc., you really can only play one sport, maybe two. But anyway, he used to take me to the playgrounds. We'd find guys to, play with. And it was kind of funny. They'd say, oh, I got the girly and I got the young boy. That was my brother. And then I got the old man. And that was my father. And we really had a good time. But that's what made me a good basketball player was all of those, I think, things combined. And you combine that with the passion. And you got to follow your passions.
It's amazing to me, Caren, how limited the amount of accessibility. I'll talk to guys, as Steven was saying, and I played wiffle ball in the backyard with my buddies, or I did, whatever. There are always folks around that you could play with, as well as a league, Little League, whatever, or Pop Warner, and not so much for you. Who were your early inspirations? Was Yvonne Goolagong Colley and Margaret Court, I guess, would be another one. Chris Everett, Tracy Austin. Were those some of the tennis stars?
Yeah, Martina Navratilova, because she was an aggressive player. I tend to be an aggressive type of player, whether it be tennis or whatever. Chris Everett, those were the two. The others were a little older. But absolutely watched them all the time. I always watched the Olympics, never missed it. Today, and just even, with my daughter was a college athlete, and now she's playing professionally in Europe. But you'll remember from the Olympics being on television, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And I wish they hadn't gotten away from that, because it's really true in sports, right? I mean, I kind of love that phrase because it is so appropriate for everything I think we do in sport, if you're competitive. Steven,
Jim McKay and the wide world of sports. Back as a kid, I can remember that basically the world stopped for about a week or so for the summer games. It literally did in '72, but in a different way. But you stop and you watch and you go, wow, these guys are so, or you get to see somebody from a different part of the world that excels in it. Was that one of your first exposures to basketball? I know that Ann Myers was just getting started in those days, and Kathy McMillan was one of the greats from the Olympic teams that we put together over the years. From a basketball perspective, who were your early heroes for that specific part of your life?
It's interesting because they didn't televise basketball back then, right? And even the Olympics, they didn't televise women's basketball. At least I don't remember that, right? I remember track and those sports. So, but Annie Myers from print media, that's how I would get, my information. Various basketball camps, Billy Moore, well, because I was passionate about UCLA. And that was really and actually I did get accepted to UCLA and was going as a walk-on until very last minute. Ended up taking a scholarship. I had a dorm, I had everything. It was last minute in July.
You and me both.
What's that?
You and me both. That's how I got my scholarship at the last second. So I can understand that.
Well, I had a couple offers, one at Cal, one, Santa Clara. Santa Clara came in late, and very last minute, I decided on Santa Clara. And then I said, if I don't like Santa Clara, I'll transfer back to UCLA. And so a little bit of a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Well, you were at Redwood High School in Marin County. It's the Marin County Athletic League. And you were there during a very competitive time in basketball. There was another high school called Sir Francis Drake High School. And at that particular time, they were a dynasty in sports, not just boys basketball. The boys team actually broke Bill Walton's Helix High School record for most consecutive games won.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It won 2 state championships. Steve Lavin, who later became the head coach at UCLA, was on that team. But the girls basketball team, I believe in '82 or '83, when you were in high school, won a state championship. So that must have been quite a competitive rivalry between the Redwood Giants and the Drake Pirates.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because Pete Hayward was the coach of that boys team, and that did so, amazing things. Well, once I developed that passion in basketball, guess where I went? I would go to the Pirate camp, and I go a few years. Well, Coach Hayward kind of took me under his wing. He loved that this girl was so aggressive and passionate as a player, and he taught me a lot. And so I mentioned my father, but Coach Hayward was another mentor, inspiration. And so he'd say, come and play with the guys. So I would go, I'd ride my bike 5 miles.
Yeah.
And then I'd play at Drake, now called Archie Williams, but I'd play at Drake with the guys. So I think it was Lavin's older brother. I know Steve, who actually is, the men's coach at San Diego, which is where my daughter was. But Steve Lavin, Steve Spencer, Brad Katuna, Mike Saya. So I was able to play with all those guys that were on this great team. And I think I was, at the time I was the only female that was playing, and Coach Hayward was a big part of that. And I have to mention one thing, because I'm only 5'7", but I could go inside or outside. Coach Hayward taught me a jump hook, and I lived on that jump hook in college and when I played in Europe. And Coach Hayward did teach me that. Good times.
Yeah. Well,
normally you hear about Pete Maravich or
yeah.
I'm sorry, please forgive me. Pete Maravich or Earl the Pearl Monroe. You've got Jerry West. When they were kids, they would take a basketball everywhere they go, in between classes, all that kind of stuff. It sounds to me like what you said earlier is that it wasn't until later on in your life that basketball became important. When was that point where you go, I love this game and I'm going to take basketball everywhere I go. I need to learn how to dribble better. I need to know how to go crossover a little bit better, behind my back, all the things that you need to do in order to be a good point guard or be able to get the ball to the next person in the realm of your offensive strategy. What was that like for you, and how did you develop your skill set with a very limited role, not a whole lot of background to go from and draw from except playing with the boys?
Right. 9th grade. Absolutely 9th grade. I give a lot of credit to the coach who put me on varsity as a freshman. There were 2 of us that made varsity as freshmen. And I was scared to death. All I would do, I could rebound, and then I'd look all over to pass somebody the ball. I get an offensive rebound. I wouldn't look to shoot it. I think I scored 33 points the whole year.
Oh, wow.
The beauty was the passion developed, and I just worked so hard, went to pirate camp, played with my dad, and I became the leading scorer my sophomore year. So between that summer, between playing my freshman year and being introduced to it and being not very good, except aggressive because I could rebound and play good defense, I then became, I just worked on my skills. How? I went out all the time. My father, I'm sure I was annoying. My brother didn't like basketball that much, but he seemed to have to come with us. Poor guy. He had to come with us. But, and then I had a younger sister who ended up being a basketball player as well at Santa Clara. She could have played college basketball or soccer. So anyway, that is where my passion developed in 9th grade. By 10th grade was leading scorer, and then just progressed from there. Knew I wanted to get a scholarship. Now will make all of you laugh. There was no streaming. There was none of this. A fellow from he did some film for UCLA, was a friend of my uncle's, and he came and videotaped me so that I could send that videotape to Cal, Stanford, so that they could see me play. And that's the only way in those days. It was so limited. It's so different now. For example, my daughter will be playing in Ireland, and we're going to be able to watch the games from there because of a streaming type service that they have. It's unbelievable, whether it be technology or just the popularity of women's sports, etc.
VHS, and then they got the some of the cameras had a different type of cassette that was standard back in the day. Back when Steven was listening to one of those phones in his car, it would connect in the center console, and he was paying $3.75 a minute for a call to talk to his buddy to see whether we're going to go for lunch. The technology has changed, and word of mouth. Hey, I've heard this girl, this Caren, well, God, hey, you got to come see her play. You didn't have a whole lot of that, but just enough. And in the way I look at it, Caren, is if one is interested, then you can have others that are interested. Nobody's interested in you if nobody wants to know about you. But if you just get one, it can springboard into other things. So UCLA, Santa Clara, you mentioned some of the other schools. By the time you're a rising senior, are you getting letters from everybody? Is it starting to really turn into, hey, I can get my college education paid for?
No, it wasn't like that. And in fact, one year we're 25-3, and somehow we didn't get chosen to go on. So if you went on to the playoffs and you were going to be seen more. But it was much more challenging to get a scholarship in those days than it is now. Not as many programs had scholarships. There were less scholarships, and things were more local. So no, I really didn't get letters like you would think that they do now. It's just so different. We'll add a little bit more to how old I am. There was no 3-point line, and the ball was the men's ball. Now they play with a ball that's an inch in circumference smaller. I played with the men's ball, and I played with no 3-point line. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you're still leading scorer.
It's funny. Harper, Caren mentioned a coach at Drake named Pete Hayward. And he was a legend, and he opened the Drake High School gym almost 24 hours a day, every night, and he gave of his time. And these night basketball games at Drake that Caren is talking about were legendary. And NBA players, Warriors players, Bill Walton was seen down there. I don't know if you ever saw Bill Walton down there, but
no, and that was in the summer, I think. Probably they ended up developing a league.
It was there was pickup games and organized games, and so this was really a tremendous opportunity for you, Caren. Now, you mentioned that you got your scholarship late. Why don't you walk me through this period of time that you're 25-3? You don't go to, I guess you were in the Northwood section at that time, but you somehow don't make it. I don't know how Redwood High School, a big school that practically invented the NCS, courtesy of Al Endress, if you go back, had not been chosen. And yet you somehow put yourself into position. So we get into May and June, and now we're getting into July, and you're thinking, well, I guess I'm going to College of Marin. And then,
oh no, I was going to UCLA. No, I wanted to go to UCLA. That's the only place I wanted to go.
As a walk-on.
I didn't even apply a lot of places. I wanted to go to UCLA.
So how did that happen? Who discovered you?
Well, what ended up happening was I made all Northern California, and they had a banquet. And then there was an all-star game after that. And then Cal previously had offered me, I think it was a partial, not a full. I knew I wasn't going to Cal. That wasn't an option because I knew I was going to I wanted to go to UCLA. And then Santa Clara came full ride, what should I do? And my parents said, it's your decision. We'll figure out a way to pay for UCLA until you earn a scholarship. Or you can take the scholarship, but you make that decision. And that's a great thing that my parents did, because after coaching for so many years, I saw parents putting a lot of influence on kids, not necessarily even just mine, but through recruiting. And it was never a good thing when they're telling a player where to go. Those players ended up transferring. They were unhappy. They gave them direction. The ones that gave direction but didn't necessarily choose where they were going to go, those players were a lot happier. But anyway, so back to how I kind of got seen was really the All Northern California banquet. And Steven, I'm sure you've heard of this guy, is Eddie Joe Chavez. Sure. So Eddie Joe Chavez played at Santa Clara, amazing player. He might even have played a little bit in the NBA, and he played in Europe for a long time. His father took me to that banquet and showed me around Santa Clara. And he says, you really need to go here. Of course, his son had gone there, was successful. And that was the first introduction I had to Santa Clara. And it was late. It was, late. And I liked it. And again, a bigger fish in a smaller pond. If I don't like it, I'll transfer back to UCLA. So, that's how it happened. And that's how I ended up at Santa Clara. So I'm grateful for the people that were around that wanted to help me and be a part of my life. And, all of those things. I know the Chavez brothers now. They're an incredible family. Mm-hmm. And their father had a big part of my going to Santa Clara.
Wow. Yeah. Caren, you mentioned when you tried out as a ninth grader, there was a lot of fear and inhibition. Everything was new to you. But when you become a Bronco for the first time, was there the same kind of fear, like I'm just a freshman on this team and I'm, I got to fit in somewhere? Or did you just from the get-go realize they're going to give me the ball and I know what to do with it now, and I'm going to take the lead, as opposed to the way it was when I was a freshman in high school?
Yeah, it was a little different. I was ready. I felt I should be a starter. It was a whole different ball game. Pretty confident, very confident, but more not ever outwardly, more inner. inner arrogance in some ways, not arrogance, but inner arrogance that I knew I can compete at this level. I knew I could help that team. That there was no question. Completely different from being, a freshman in high school. And because, in high school, I also played soccer, I played tennis. I didn't play tennis very often in the off season, but I did play. So in high school, I played those, and I dabbled in rowing also. And then my senior year in high school, I played softball, which my senior year in college, I ended up playing softball also.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I go, you're Bo Jackson, right? You can do multiple things. You mentioned that inner confidence because of soccer, because of even rowing, stronger, and in many cases maybe in better shape than some of the others. Anything she can do, I can do, and I can do it better. Is that the way that you started looking at yourself? I go, what, I can shoot here, and my free throw percentage is equally high, if not better. That inner confidence, did that end up being a conversation with a coach to get you on the court a little bit more? What was that like for you to be able to show what you can do and do so at a level where you go, not only do I belong here, but I'm going to excel at this level?
I never compared myself with anybody else or felt, I've got to, I'm going to be much better than them. I kind of wasn't like that. I don't know, maybe in a little bubble. I'm just kind of in my own world. I just went out and did my thing, and I played as hard as I could, which did separate me from others because of how hard I played, aggressive, how hard, work ethic. But no, I never compared myself in that way from a inner arrogance perspective. I just went out and did my thing, but confident enough that is what, just confident enough that the things would fall into place. It is kind of funny because softball, I only played I played my senior year, but you have to wait until basketball season ends before you could go out and play softball. And I only played softball in high school, but I played in women's leagues in the summer. And that was the only time really, like for basketball, I didn't ever go to the coach and say, I think I would never do that, right? More time or this. It just happens, and it worked out for me. In softball, I thought, well, first of all, I couldn't hit when I went out because the pitches were so fast. I would be here, I'd look, and then I'd swing. I went to the batting cages every day and had to hit that fast pitch. And I thought I was good enough to be the center fielder. And I did go to the coach and I said, hey, what else do I need to do to start? And the next day I started. And I think it was more, and so I would say it is important to go talk to coaches. And I think it was more, here comes this person, you can't just throw them in because you don't want to mess up the chemistry of the team. But that is one time as a softball player, I could do that.
Now, did you redshirt anytime while you were at Santa Clara? I noticed you were there from 80 to 84. So talk a little bit about, that experience. Was it straight through? Tell me.
Those weren't options at that time, right? The redshirting thing, maybe for guys, for women, it really wasn't. There's so many differences between now, the time I was coaching. Well, let me back up. From the time I played, so many changes to the time I coach, so many changes to our world today for women in sports.
Yeah.
And right now, one of my favorite just parts of all of it is men are watching women's basketball. Men are watching and getting excited about women's basketball. And for me, that's really exciting.
Isn't it though? I mean, the ratings go up, and that's just not a Caitlin deal, but she's a part of it and has really made a difference in, what's this one kid going to do? How's she going to play against these other guys? And what, the growth from no airtime in the Olympics to where now they don't have their own network show, but they're working on it, right? It's improved drastically. What's that been like for you to be able to watch and see the progression of that, especially from a player and then a coach's perspective?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark, to me, was the biggest reason that you have the fan support in the recent couple, year, 2 years, 3 years. Can you give her all the credit? Maybe not all the credit, but she deserves a whole lot of that credit. It's pretty, because she is this, Steph Curry, and this is how I look. She is the Steph Curry of women's basketball. Steph Curry changed the game for the pros with his 3-point shooting and all that he could do, and really made it even more exciting, in my opinion, aside from the dunking, right? In the men's game, it's, the dunks and all that. But, Curry changed the way the game was played a little bit with all the 3-point shooting. And, now you have all the little kids wanting to shoot threes, which as a coach can make you crazy. But I will say that Caitlin Clark and her game, her personality, everything is the reason in the last 3 years this game has grown as much as it has.
Yeah. I would equate her, Caren. I'm not disagreeing with you. I completely understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to go a step further. She's more of the Tiger Woods of the game right now, because more people watch because Tiger was on. It doesn't mean that Phil Mickelson wasn't an important part of it too. You had to have somebody that was going to give Tiger a run for his money, and it didn't matter who it was. Ernie Els one week, or if it was Fred Couples another week, but people were there to watch whether or not he was going to wear red Nike on Sundays with black pants, and he was going to dominate. And I think Caitlin has that ability to go, you know what, I wasn't going to, but now I'm going to watch, much in the same way that people were going to watch golf when Tiger was playing. So it may be an over-exaggeration. I'm not comparing her to Tiger in terms of her relevance, but I'm just saying in terms of a comparison, if that makes sense to you, please, your comments. I'm interested.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, and they're marketable, both of them. Right. And so that's a big part of it too, in the media. Yeah. And so I 100% agree with you, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you move on from Santa Clara University now.
It's great for the sport. It's great for the girls that are coming up that are going, hey, I never got a chance to watch the WNBA games. You get to see that.
Love it. I love it. I have season tickets to the Valkyries. The environment in the Valkyries is electric. And I didn't realize they would sell out every game. I just never thought that would happen in the Bay Area. And it has. Yeah. And, is part of this, could this be part of it also? It was perfect timing. I mean, I hate that we don't have a Pac-12. I hate that Cal and Stanford have to go travel across the United States to play. It's just not right. But all of this happening, I think maybe has also, it's a little more difficult. You can't go to every single Stanford game per se that's regional. Now if you want to go watch and play an away game, you got to go away. But that has also helped. I think Stanford in general has helped, and now Cal too. The fan support for the Bay Area and the excitement of women's basketball.
Right. So you move on from Santa Clara, and I had been talking to Harper before.
Extra guys, a bunch of guys.
Oh,
can you
I
hear
think
me?
we're freezing a little bit.
Harper, can you hear me? I don't think he hears me.
Yeah, I can hear you, Steven.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, there's Harper.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't think you can hear me, Harper. Maybe Logan can tell you that I'm trying to get in here. But you coached. You went on from Santa Clara University to play in Greece, and I was joking with Harper, not joking, but we were talking about your name, Chapelis. I said, "Oh, it sounds like a French name," which it kind of does, but it's Greek, and you got to play in Greece, the home of your ancestry. What was that like in the mid-1980s?
Amazing experience. I would not trade it for anything. I loved it. The example I use is when I was there, again, no technology. I could make a phone call home once a week. Mm-hmm. We went to the club's landline, and that's how I would call home. I'm a little surprised that my parents, in those days, again, it was different. I mean, They didn't know where I was. I mean, they knew I was going to Panathinaikos, the club. They didn't know who was in charge of it. They didn't know where I was staying. They didn't know anything. And again, I was so passionate, and the men's coaches at Santa Clara helped connect me and get me that opportunity, which was incredible. And so basically I got on a flight. I didn't even think about it being a different language. I got off the airplane. I'm looking around. Of course, there's not a whole lot of English, and it's a whole different alphabet. I knew Yasu. That means hello and goodbye. Yeah. And all the manager said was, oh, yeah, just find a payphone, call me when you get there, and we'll pick you up. We'll pick you up. Okay, and then I ended up staying in a hotel for probably 2 to 3 months. I ended up taking a Greek course so that I could maybe look at the newspaper and figure out how am I going to find a rental that they would be paying for, but they hadn't kept me in the hotel. But it was the level of competition wasn't great at that time. You had, some good players, but not a bunch of great players. No defense, which the European game is still a little bit like that. And it was, I guess the last thing I would say is they did not have hardwood floor as their courts when you play. It was linoleum rolled over cement, and you played on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And there were older men in the stands, and that was basically it.
Okay. That's quite an experience, but it's a great experience. Did you ever in college or in your professional career play against Cheryl Miller, the great star for USC?
I wish. No, we never had that opportunity.
Never had the opportunity.
I wanted to play some of those teams. At the time, Santa Clara was not in the NORPAC. Was not in the West Coast Conference. When I played, we were in the NORPAC. It was Oregon, Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Stanford, Santa Clara, and USF.
Well,
and I'm guessing he didn't want to play any more teams of that level, being USF and Santa Clara being smaller schools going up against the bigger schools. I think that, the coach just didn't want to pick up from a strength of schedule. It would have just been too strong. So no, I did not have that opportunity. Played against Colleen Galloway, played against Mary Heil-Nepfel, All-American. Some good local talent.
Right. So how did you get into coaching? Was that something as you were growing up? Okay, I love basketball. This is my life. I think I want to stay with it, even because every athlete knows that there's an expiration date. There's a day, someday, someone's going to tell you can't play anymore. It's going to be an injury. It's going to be you're cut from the team. It's going to be, we're reducing the payroll. There's always some reason, and it's always going to happen to every player. It's happening to Clayton Kershaw today with the Dodgers. So it happens eventually to you. And did you decide, I want to stick with this game and become a coach? What was that process like?
Yeah, no, never had any thought of being a coach, really. I'll get back to that. But what I want to share, and I don't know if you have younger viewers at all on this, but a lot of times, yes, you're going to be told, oh, you can't play anymore, or you realize you can't play anymore. But I want to take that a little deeper, Stephen, because many times you're going to be told you can't do something. You won't be able to do this. You won't be able to do that. You have to believe in yourself. And if you want something and you have a passion for something, you have to continue to push for it. You have to continue to go for it, despite what other people say, because you have jealous people. You have people that might not believe in you for whatever reason. You have people that maybe couldn't achieve the things that maybe, you could achieve. But if you believe in yourself and you find a way to do it and you're, aggressive to do it, you can do it. And what I want to share with you is, I made varsity as a freshman, but then after that, I'm only 5'7". Do you know how many times I heard you will not be able to play in college? You're only 5'7". You're not going to play in college. Well, I played in college. And then, well, you're too small to play in Europe. How are you going to play in Europe? They only want post players. Well, I was able, luckily enough, to play in Europe, right? And get paid the first year just enough to, make it, but the second year much better. And for me, it wasn't about the money, it was about the experience. And today I still have really good friends that are Greek, and I have been back there so many times, and they make the trips. Every time I've brought friends, they make the trips. Okay. And then I was either 25 or 26 when I got the head coaching job at Santa Clara. But of course I was, you're too young. You'll never be a head coach. So I'm sharing that not because of what I was able to accomplish, but because whoever's out there, and it could be adults, it could be a job. Oh, you'll never get that job because of this, but you can find a way, and don't just not do something because 5 people tell you, oh, there's no way that'll happen. There's no way you can do it. So that's kind of why I'm sharing that. So now back to
that's life right there. I mean, that's a life lesson. And no matter what it is you try to do, there's always going to be some reason that you're not supposed to succeed. And you just have to push back against that. There's no two ways about it. I've gone through it. You've gone through it. And so you mentioned something earlier, and so let's talk about your coaching career. You talked about, I believe it was just playing softball, and you went to your coach and you said, hey, what do I have to do to play center field? Now, that's an interesting question, and it's an interesting approach, and it's a smart approach. Was this a lesson that you took into coaching? Like, let's establish the line of communication with the players that you can come to me. You can ask me. You don't have to. You're not going to demand or force me to make you to play you or to change your position. But you can come to me. There's a way of doing things, and the way you did it. What do I have to do? What do I have to do to improve myself? Was that a lesson you learned from that experience that you took into coaching and imparted to your players?
Mm-hmm. Well, I go back, I take that back to my father, because I'd be like, oh man, I think I'm good enough to play, but the typical kid response, how come, he says, well, don't tell me, you better go talk to your coach, right? Don't complain. Just go and communicate. Your question about, did I encourage that or whatever? I did share with them, if you have an issue with playing time, you have an issue, with different things, then come and talk to me about it. What I've learned though over the years, right? They're always going to feel more comfortable with an assistant coach than the head coach. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like, even now, and I laugh about this. You mentioned I'm in real estate, and I do have a manager in our office, and we're actually friends, and she'll say, oh, Caren, can you come in my office? And the second she says that, I go, am I in trouble? It's really funny. And that's what they think sometimes with the head coach, right? Am I in trouble? No, you're not in trouble. We just want to chat. But that's just something maybe innate, or, I hope I never promoted that as a head coach, but I think they felt they did have an open door, but I think it's always easier to communicate with an assistant coach first. But that is really important, I think, for players to know they need to go and talk with the coach if there's an issue. Rather than, in the back that.
Caren, were there times in that early recruiting process where you go to visit?
I'm sorry, I only heard part of it.
Please forgive me, the glitch is still there. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to tease with you and say, were there times when you would go visit with a mom or a dad and a recruit that you were looking to bring into the school, and they go, oh, where's the head coach? You can't be the head coach. You're only 25 years old, 26. Hey, this is a great spaghetti dinner, Mrs. Smith. I really appreciate it. And then, well, when's the head coach going to come? Because you obviously are too young to be the head coach. I'm sure it happened once or twice, but then you started to win and everything changed. That's the fun part for me, is what was your magic trick in terms of, we're going to practice better, we're going to be more efficient, we're going to correct mistakes, we're going to do things a little bit differently from what I've learned in bits and pieces here from high school, my college days, my overseas days. What was it that allowed you to be a better coach because you worked the girls harder, or more efficiently than what you had seen in your life earlier?
Yeah, I think, a number of those things, but I think that's hilarious that you say that about going into recruiting. And luckily, if I was 16, I looked 21. If I'm 21, I always looked a little older, but I get a kick out of that you would mention that. So let me go back. So ask that again real quick.
Well, I learned through football that there are better ways. Everyone wants to win. Everyone has practice, but there are certain ways that some people practice that prove themselves to be better on game day. Was there anything like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. One, I did not have a whole lot of experience as a head coach when I got the job. We were 7-21, then we were 9-19, then we were 28-3. How did that happen? Part of it was I learned more, but to be honest, the biggest part was the staff that I had and the players that we brought in. One in particular, Melissa King from Marin County, completely turned the program around, right? So as great of a coach you want to think you are, or, that makes, you got to have the players, you really got to have the players. And then I think it's really important who you surround yourself with. And those were two key things. And then, to be honest, I think you got to have a little luck. And, a couple of things, because the coach I played for was the coach that I then coached afterwards. He didn't have the resources that I had. So here you're going the Title IX, and they only had a certain amount of scholarships. Now, what I don't like is the way you get the resources sometimes. They took from the men to give to the women in those days. And I don't like that, right? I think there was a way to give to the women without taking from the men. So they took a couple scholarships from the men to give to the women. Okay. It made us better. I don't think it made a huge difference for them, but what it did was make them, like, hey, what's going on? Why is that happening? But some of the other positive things that happened when I played, we had to practice at 6 a.m. in the morning. When I coached, as soon as I went back and coached, we had to share practice times. So whether it be at 3 or whether it be at 5, the girls were not having to go at 6 a.m. every day. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was a big thing. But so back to answer your question, I would go back and I would say players and staff are two key things. And then having a little more experience, I think, was helpful.
Caren,
because offense is basically all right.
Okay. You mentioned bringing in better players. So this reminds me of Augie Garrido, who was a baseball coach at Cal State Fullerton, and he took over the Cal State Fullerton team when they were nothing more than a club sport. But he looked around Fullerton and Orange County, and he said, this is where the baseball players are. And he said, I am going to go for the guys who are not being recruited by USC, UCLA, Arizona State, and Stanford. I'm going to go for the guys who have been overlooked, and they've got a chip on their shoulder, and they want to beat those teams. Okay, so you're at Santa Clara, you're up against, you're in the state of California, there's USC, there's UCLA, there's Cal Stanford, there's other schools. You are recruiting some players who might not have gotten the offers from some of those schools. They've got a chip on their shoulder. How did you play into that mentality to make them better players?
Well, I think that's a great point, and kind of where to start. So I think there's two things. One, tapping into those players, absolutely. In today's world, unfortunately, you get those players and then they only stay 1 year. It doesn't matter the coach, the whatever. They stay 1 year and they leave, right? Fortunately, I was at a great academic school, so people also wanted the education, right? But so that kind of course, yes, we went after those, but I also went after the others. I went after those big players. And this is what happened from it. And I learned pretty quickly. You might not get them the first time, but you're going to get them when they don't like where they went, and they're going to come back to you. And you don't ever get upset with them that they go to a different school. You treat them with respect. You let them know if it doesn't work out, we're here for you. And we were lucky with Melissa. She went to Fresno State first, and then she transferred back. I wasn't there to have had that ability to recruit her at the time, but then, and she was a program maker. We had another player, Brooks DeBell, went to Clemson, but I thought we were going to get her, but she ended up going to Clemson. Not a Southern girl. She was from Colorado. And guess where she came back to? She came back to Santa Clara, another program maker. So those types of players. And then I want to go back to my first recruit, because her name was Julie Leonard. And when I was at USF for 1 year, working with Mary Heil Nepfel and Bill Nepfel, who were amazing. And I was recruiting Julie Leonard while I was at USF. She was a junior college player, overlooked, felt she should have, maybe gone somewhere. Was Sacramento area, but kind of out American Canyon. That's where she was from. Mm-hmm. And the second I fell in love with her game. And so when I got to Santa Clara, I would continue to recruit her, and she chose Santa Clara. And that was my first recruit, and she made all the difference in the world. And then Melissa came in that next year. So those kinds of, she was a phenomenal three-point shooter. And like I told you, when we played, we didn't even have the three-point line. I'm not a three-point shooter, but I fell in love as a coach with three-point shooters. And she kind of started that, and then we did recruit three-point shooters. So she was one with the chip on the shoulder. Then the other thing was you recruit the top players and hope you get them back.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And it only takes a year or two, and it only takes an NCAA appearance and some publicity and an interview on ESPN. And the next thing you know, there is a player from San Jose or Santa Clara who's a first-team high school All-American who says, I'm going to stay local. I'm going to play for the Broncos, or comes in from another area and falls in love with the area. It's an easy place to fall in love with. The school is beautiful. The facilities are fantastic.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, it's a very strong academic and spiritually strong school. So it had to be a great experience for you. It leads to a decision that you had to make, because you become so successful that you become well known to the point where the University of California comes and wants to hire you, and you want to make that move. Now you're at Santa Clara. I'm sure you were very happy. In fact, I remember going down there and hanging out with your husband, Bill. And, your poster was hanging out at this country western place for a week. You were getting along. I'm telling you. And Bill was saying, oh yeah, she's a rock star down here. And then along comes Cal. So this has to be a difficult decision for you, but you decided to go to Berkeley. So why don't you tell me about that?
Well, it wasn't a difficult decision because I wasn't going to go to Cal. I said, I'm going to end up retiring at Santa Clara. This is where I'll be. And, when they came, we talked about it. I was 8 months pregnant, 7.5, 8 months pregnant. They know my husband knew how hard I worked at Santa Clara. So he's like, oh my gosh, if you go there, you're going to be working so hard. And so, no, I basically said, hey, thank you so much. I'm so honored that you would want me to come to Cal, but I wasn't going. So then they called again and said, hey, do you want to just go to dinner? And I said, oh, okay, we'll go to dinner. And I think my husband was like, you're going to go to dinner with them? And so I did go to dinner with them. I really like them.
Who was the athletic director, Caren?
John Kasser. John
Okay.
Kasser and Chris Dawson was the associate athletic director, assistant athletic director.
Right.
She was at Cal for a lot of years while I played. I mean, she's awesome. She's retired now. And anyway, one of my questions for John was, well, hey, John, you're doing a good job. How long, you're going to be at Cal? You're not going to be leaving anytime soon, right? Oh, no, I'm set here. I'm happy here. I'm just throw this in. 6 months later, he took a job at the Pac-12, which was kind of funny. I mean, he was awesome and, loved it. But, Chris was still there. But anyway, that's kind of a side note. So I went to dinner and then they were really nice. And they said, well, why don't you just come up, take a look? We have a new facility. Like if it was still that old facility, there'd have been no way.
They'd redone Hawes Pavilion.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Completely redone it, as I recall.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh, okay. So actually I went with my father to look at the school beforehand. And it was really early in the morning. And, I didn't want anyone to see me walking around. Anyway, okay. So did that. And then a week later I said, okay, I'll go up and take a look. And they took me on the tour. And I go back and say to my husband, well, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe we're from Marin. It's closer. I'm 8 months pregnant. The parents are there. The school was really nice. It has one way to go. And he said, oh, well, that all makes sense. And then somehow I ended up at Cal and loved it. Absolutely loved it. I had 4 athletic directors in 5 years. But it was a great experience. Coaching there, the level of players, the level of talent was a notch up, no doubt. But it was hard also leaving Santa Clara and the players and the program and the coaches, but it was left in good hands. It was left with one of my former assistants who got hired after I did. I do want to put a plug in for Santa Clara right now because they just hired a coach I think is going to be phenomenal. And her associate head coach, I actually, a little younger there and pregnant. But anyway, and I coached against her associate head coach who was at Gonzaga at the time. And we coached against each other. And now she's coaching at Santa Clara as an associate head coach. So I put in a little plug for them because I think they're a team to watch. And go Broncos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. We're now seeing a whole brave new world of college sports. It's called NIL. And we're seeing the NIL and the transfer portal. We're mostly seeing it from the standpoint of football and basketball. What about women's sports? Who are the women who are really benefiting from NIL, really making money from NIL, and to a lesser extent, what is the effect of the transfer portal? But address first NIL. What do you think of that? And who is really benefiting from it, if anybody?
Well, I think now you have NIL, and I think you have players just getting money from other sources. And I think the idea of the NIL perhaps was a good idea initially. And now it is a can of worms open, and I don't know that they're going to be able to put a lid back on it. And what do I mean by that? I think that players making $1 million, even women's players making $1 million, transfer will pay you $1 million. Transfer the third time, we're going to give you $200,000. Not just NIL, right? It's not just NIL. They have this collective, and they're raising money in collective, and now it's professional. It is no longer amateur. It's no longer, call me old fashioned, but I think I hope this is not going to happen. You started to have the parity close between larger schools, more financially sound schools, and the smaller schools like the Santa Clara, St. Mary's, USFs of the world. The parity was getting closer, and all these schools are starting to beat those other schools. Well, now there's no way the WCC can have the money of the ACC It's just no way. Just from a football perspective, they don't have football. These other schools have football, television. The parity is going to go like this. I hope I'm not foreseeing that the WCC could, the smaller leagues could end up Division II. Don't want to see that.
No.
How are any of these schools going to be able to sustain financially paying these players what they're paying? And that's on the women's side, but now take the men's side. Whether it be football and basketball, how are they going to financially succeed? I just don't think that this is a model that can be successful over time.
I agree with you.
Oh, you both walked up on me. Oh.
I'm sorry, I've had some glitching. I apologize for that. And I think I'm back up live and strong enough to be able to continue. Again, I apologize. So
Okay.
I'm rejoining the conversation after you've
Great.
you're talking a little bit more about the state of where we are today.
We're talking about the NIL, and Caren has expressed the opinion that it's not sustainable, certainly not for the smaller sports and the smaller schools. You went to Colorado State. I played on a full scholarship at the University of Nevada. Both of those are Division I schools, but they're lower tier. What's your opinion on the NIL?
Well, mine specifically is where's the equality that every campus screams for when Ohio State has $22 million and can raise it like that, and Santa Clara, it would take 10 years to raise that much money to be able to pay their players. So it's going to be a very interesting perspective from that side of it. But the rate at which it changed for a USC or for a Cal Berkeley to go to Rutgers or to go to Florida State to be able to play, it's a little bit more expensive, but it adds up when you add the women's golf team or the swim team or the track team. And so there's a lot of dynamic financially that it's not going to be the same. But I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle, Caren. It's next to impossible. They said, okay, go ahead and let the games begin without really establishing a accurate set of rules and an observable set of rules, because some teams or some schools have the ability to pay for stuff that others don't. What would you do if you were the commissioner of a conference or the president of the NCAA for a day? What would be the first thing that you would try to do to kind of rein this back in and get it to be more manageable?
First thing I would do, I would stop transferring the way that it's going. I would put it back and say, you've got to sit out a year if you're going to transfer. I'd get rid of the transfer portal. It is out of control. Okay. They're going in shopping. These high school students almost have no chance of getting a scholarship now. And now they say, okay, go to a JC. You can still have, 4 years, 6 years.
Oh, JCs are destroyed too.
The JCs, is that what you said?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So that's how I would start. And then I don't know that you can put the genie back in the bottle. I would let football go off, do their own thing, and get everybody else back away from football. Even though I think the television packages, they want to package maybe everybody. I'm not really sure how that works. I've been out of it too long. But and then I would I think you're going to have to cap what you play people, or you've got to get back to just NIL. I really wasn't for NIL when it was happening. I didn't agree with that. I think you get a room, board, tuition, books, and a stipend. I think it should stay that way. If football, you need to separate that, that's fine. But sorry if I'm sounding old fashioned, but I think, so where do I think we're headed? I will ask you a question. Do you think we're headed more to the model of Europe where they are club teams and you play as clubs and not universities? For example, my daughter's playing for Trinity Meteors in Ireland. There is the college, but it's a club team and it's separate.
Yes.
And they pay the players, different players, or most of the Irish players, I think, don't make money.
I have experience with this. I managed and did play, but mostly managed and coached a professional baseball team or a semi-professional baseball team in Germany, of all places.
Didn't know that, Stephen.
Yes, they were, at the time, Germany thought that they might get the 2000 Olympics, and they wanted to increase the visibility of baseball, getting ready for that. And so they recruited a number of American coaches and people with experience in different sports, including baseball, to go there and coach some of these teams. And you're absolutely right. The team that I coached was a club team, and none of the players had played any sort of college. There was no college sports to speak of. I mean, other than Japan, the United States, and in England, rowing, and maybe a few of those sports are university sponsored. The American college sports system is a marvel, and it's you're absolutely right, and it's being destroyed, and it's being destroyed from within, and it's really sad. And you're right. I mean, this show here is still about nostalgia, because a lot of what we're seeing today is not very palatable, and I'm not liking it. I still love sports, but I like to talk about things that happened when I was young, the 1970s, the 1980s. As far as I'm concerned, that was a golden era of sports at every level, and you were part of it, and I was a part of it, and it was really something. What say you?
Yeah, I agree with you. Are you asking Harper?
Well, I'm just, going back in time. I mean, we're all of a certain age. I'm not saying we were better athletes, because we were not, but there was something about that time and the enthusiasm for high school sports and for college sports during that period of time in the 70s and the 80s. And you could, for somebody like myself who came along and was not a highly recruited athlete out of high school, surrounded by other people in high school who were going to USC, UCLA, Stanford, Pepperdine, Hawaii, not me. I had to fight my way through, but there was a portal, there was a place for me to shine and to get there. Is the system that we're seeing now, you mentioned high school kids can't get a scholarship. Is it all because the juniors and the sophomores from other schools are flooding into X college, and they're the really good players? They're the veterans. We're going to give them the scholarships, or them the MAL money. And unless you're, top blue chip, 5-star recruit, is there a chance for anybody from high school to really get these scholarships?
It's tough. It's two factors. Two factors are happening. So if I'm a coach and I want to be good right away, or I want to be better, or I want to challenge for the championship, I'm going to take somebody who has experience, who maybe played in a pretty darn school and had a lot of success. I'm going to the portal. I'm shopping in the portal. And that's what just about everybody's doing, right? That's number one. But we have another problem that maybe you guys aren't aware of in women's basketball. In my opinion, it's got to change. If you go to Europe and play, 3 international players are allowed usually. Okay. Yeah. Here you have teams with 9 and 10 foreign players. So now you have the portal taken away from high school students. You have international students taking away from our high school students. And I'm grateful that my daughter was 4 years ago, except now this next year she could have made some money here. But I don't know if you've thought about that, but I do not think we should allow more than 3 foreign players on a team. So if you're, I don't know if I should use any school names. If you're a certain school that isn't appealing to the eye, but yet you love the city, you can get those foreign kids that are going to make you better right away. So I get why they want to recruit the better players.
Mhm.
However, it is not right. Just not right, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I do lean towards the general idea of competition, and the United States is still where everyone wants to come. Everyone
Right.
wants to come to America, and this is the land of opportunity. This is where you come, and you're absolutely right about the cities. All of a sudden, Los Angeles or New York might make Columbia or NYU or USC. USC and UCLA already have their brand, but a city, as opposed to you're from Serbia. No, I don't necessarily want to live in Norman, Oklahoma.
Right.
Right? What's there for me? But there's there might be a Serbian neighborhood or population that exists in Houston, Texas, or Dallas, or someplace. So
You've got TikTok and Instagram, and they're showing this. They're showing all these fun places, right?
Yeah.
And that's how these kids find things now. Oh, we found all the good restaurants in San Diego. Kylie would take TikTok, and we'd find them. You couldn't just Google these, and we'd find the best restaurants from TikTok.
It's funny you mentioned that. I can remember when I was in high school, and we would play teams from outside the area. We'd play teams from Los Angeles, San Diego, what have you. And in some cases, the players would stay with our families. So there would be a kid from a high school, from Vista High in San Diego or Oceanside or someplace, staying for a couple nights at my house. And you would talk to him about what's it like in San Diego. And they would
Right.
tell you about some really good players. And they were almost like a myth, because
Right.
you're only getting this word of mouth from a guy. There's this kid named Alan Trammell playing shortstop at El Cajon High School, right? Or I remember this kid was a high school quarterback. He said there's a kid at L.A. Wilson named Ron Cuccia, and he's unstoppable.
Oh.
And I would follow these names, and you would see them in the LA Times or in Prep Sports. You remember Prep Sports magazine? That was kind of it in those days.
Right. I do.
USA Today then finally came on, and they started covering high school sports, and they started having national rankings on a weekly basis. And that was a big deal. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And, that's, in some ways, that's how people found out right about us as players. You're saying, oh, you heard about this player, but it was all word of mouth. People talk to each other then, Steve.
Yeah, we talked to each other. They showed up at the Northern California Awards dinner and saw that there's a human being named Caren Horstmeyer from Redwood High School. And she's only 5'7", but she looks like she can play. Maybe we're going to take a flyer on her. Harper played at Colorado State University. Now I'm guessing Harper came out of Notre Dame High in Sherman Oaks.
Okay.
He goes to Colorado State. My guess, Harper, is if you had probably been a more blue chip high school player, you would have been at USC or UCLA. My guess is by your sophomore or junior year at Colorado State, you were getting to the point where the NFL was looking at you. In your day, you would not have stayed at Colorado State playing for the Rams for 4 years. You would have been in that portal and gone to one of these bigger schools that maybe you were eyeing. I mean, what say you about that?
Well, very briefly, I did want to leave after my freshman year. I was recruited for a while to go to the University of Washington. And in high school, I had hurt my hand and a ball was thrown to me and I dropped it. And I physically could see the coach from Washington get up and leave and walk away. I said, there goes my chance. I don't know. It was so different. I probably would have redshirted and asked for an extra year. I think there's a lot of people that say, gosh, if I had one more year to develop, that would have affected me. Ed O'Bannon, Caren, I was going to mention from earlier, what would we do? Ed O'Bannon changed everything. When the money that came from the video games and all that, and it had to be distributed to the players because their name was on the video game, things changed, in my opinion, forever. And that's part of the genie and not being able to put it back in the bottle. So the biggest reward I got was a T-shirt that said Colorado State on it. That's one of the things I got. That was my NIL money from back in the day, right? Or a pair of shoes if the equipment manager was looking the other way. You know, today it's $1 million for some kids that are signing. So I don't know how you fix it, but I appreciate you asking that, Steven. It's the important part of well, if I don't like the way it is right now, I'm going to leave, and that's a lot different than tough it out, kid. Now's not your time. We got somebody in front of you who's the starter. You're going to get your time, but it's only going to be for 3 years instead of. Nick Saban decided to leave the game as one of the great because he just can't handle all the crazy things that are taking place right now.
But what you're saying, oh, I don't like what's going on, is further than that now. I love where I am, but they're going to offer me $1 million to come.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm sorry. I love it here, Coach. How do I turn that down?
Yeah.
And I think that's.
It's going to turn, let's say, Santa Clara or the University of Nevada into a minor league for a larger league.
Right.
Now, we had a guest on about a month or so ago, one of my best friends, Terry Marks. And Terry was up to be the commissioner of the Pac-12 conference around 2011. They gave it to Tim Scott, who had a background in women's tennis. And Terry had a background in marketing from being the president of Coca-Cola and having played professional baseball and college baseball, had a far better understanding. And he was just talking about all the differences that there exist. And, you know, it didn't exist really, this whole concept of the NIL at that particular time. I can remember Pat Hayden making a speech to the USC alumni probably around 2012 or 13. And he was talking about this Ed O'Bannon case that you were mentioning, Harper. And he said, if this case goes against the NCAA, it's going to be the end of the world as we know it. And I think that's what we're seeing today. You know, and it's sorry, because the days, you know, when we were growing up, a Santa Clara had a legitimate shot at winning a national championship pretty much in any sport. Maybe not football. Right. If you can go back in time, if the history of Santa Clara in the 1940s, they were beating LSU in the Orange Bowl.
Orange Bowl, yeah.
They had great teams and great players. Obviously, the game has changed. A lot happened in the Bay Area when the 49ers came, and a lot of those schools, St. Mary's, Santa Clara, USF, which played at Kezar Stadium to huge crowds, were sublimated by Cal, Stanford, and the 49ers. But, you know, a Cal State Fullerton baseball. Santa Clara was a baseball powerhouse in the 1960s and 1970s. They went to the College World Series a number of times. A lot of major league players came out of there. St. Mary's was an excellent program. You know, and it's what we're seeing today is the SEC dominating in pretty much every sport. And that's, they've got the money, you know, they have the money. And are you glad that you're no longer in it, Caren, that you're no longer dealing with these problems? Or
I think it's they're just different issues than, what you had before. For me, I had the two kids and I had gotten out of coaching and I didn't miss it for a long time. Now, it's my kids are I'm an empty nester, and sometimes I think, hey, it'd be fun to be an assistant coach. I think the difference is I think you manage the teams, you get them as good as you can in 1 year because you don't know if they're going to be there the next year. So whoever can get their team to play the best in that year, I think they're going to be the ones to be successful. And there's something kind of exciting about that. But I don't particularly like where it's gone. Luckily, I like what I do. And
I don't think it is. I think you're going to like it when your team wins the national championship. And when they don't, you just don't. You don't like it. And,
well, true.
You know, if the USC Trojans can go all the way, hey, I like this system. Fight on. You know, but
you saw Trojans last year. The women's basketball team did really well, and they have a player named Juju Watkins.
You know, they've been an interesting program. They have had two or three of the greatest college basketball teams in the history of women's college basketball have been USC.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, their program has not consistently dominated at the level of UCLA or Old Dominion, the way they used to be, obviously Tennessee and Connecticut. I think I'm naming probably the 5 greatest women's basketball programs of all time. Is there another one in there?
Mm-hmm. I know we're probably missing one. But,
right.
You know, Stanford in many ways.
Of course, Stanford, when Tara Vanderveer, she built the dynasty. There's no question about that. Harper, we want to be respectful of Caren's time. Is there any more? Usually want to dig in with some last question if I know your style.
Well, what was the transition like for you with your education and everything that you had learned, where you take all of the glitz and glamour of athletics and then turn that into a real estate business, and you've been very successful. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how your passion for helping people in the home business has changed, and in what ways is it also connected to your athletic background?
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I like to help people. I like to work with people. I'm a people person. And sometimes people say, oh, wow, that was a different career going into real estate. But in so many ways, it's so similar. You are working with people. You're helping people like you were helping the athletes or, you know, whoever it might have been. It's the same thing here. The difference being, I mean, this is their biggest financial, most of the time, their biggest financial piece of their life. And so that has been great, right? Some of the similarities, your schedule's flexible. I can't imagine having a 9-to-5 job, right? Your schedule's flexible until it isn't. And, you know, coaching was somewhat like that. What do I mean about that in real estate? Well, you know, I'm here with you guys. I can make that flexible and be able to do it. But at the same time, if I've got to write an offer because 3 people are writing an offer on a house, it's got to be now and it's got to be as soon as possible, right? So, you know, there's that. That's kind of exciting for me. I think there's some challenges that I like. You know, if there's multiple offers, I want, you know, I'm a winner. I want my clients to win, figuring out a way to do it. The agony of defeat, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, if you don't get it for your clients because you know how much they wanted it. But things have kind of fallen in place for me, and I appreciate that. And you know, it just kind of is that way. And I tell my clients, if you didn't get that home, there will be another home that's the right home for you, because that's usually the way it works. You end up in the right house for you. So, you know, for me, I'm able to do this. It's not something I have to retire from. I'm all basically word of mouth. I don't advertise. I don't do a lot. It's just, that's how I kind of do my business. But it's been great. I live in Marin County, beautiful place. And, you know, I've got 2 great kids and a husband, and, you know, life, it's been good.
Yeah, you're living the life. There's no doubt about it. You know, and I would also say this, or perhaps finish with this. I see that women have made a lot of strides in our society, in American society, and throughout the world in my lifetime. And in my humble opinion, I think sports has played the biggest role, or one of the biggest roles, in allowing that to happen. And I think what I think the reason is because it has allowed women to understand competition, because nothing's fair. Nobody's going to hand it to you. You're going to have to earn it. And no place is that more obvious than in sports. And if you learn that in sports early on, you're going to take that into life. You've taken it into life. You were in sports, now you're in business. And I really do believe sports plays a really major role in anyone's life in the improvement of their lives. A lot of ups and downs, but
yeah, I love that. And Stephen, maybe I can just, another little story. And I know I've kind of brought up my kids, but my son just 3 days ago, maybe 2-3 days ago, said to us, "Thank you for making sure I did something in high school." And what do I mean by that? He wasn't a great athlete. And boys, they mature later, or sometimes even in college, from an athletic standpoint. They grow, they get stronger, all of that. But we just said to my son, "You got to do something. I don't care if it's drama, it can be sports, it can be work, whatever." He chose rowing. Mm-hmm. And he said, "You know what, Mom? Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you so much for making me do something in high school and not just stay on video games, because this has made a difference in my life. Rowing made a difference in my life." And he did row 1 year at Delaware, University of Delaware, and he kind of came into his own as he, got older, which was great. But it's pretty telltale sign when they come back and realize that when they see some of these things, the shootings or this, and these kids are on video games and whatever, "Thank you for making me do something in high school." So I just kind of end with that.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great tribute. And we appreciate all that you've done for the game of basketball, for all that you will do. Dave Baker said that to me once, and it was striking. For all that you've done and for all that you will do for the game, we want to thank you for that. And Caren, it's been a pleasure to have you on here today. I know that you're on a busy schedule, but thank you for your flexibility. And as you mentioned, I hope you get to write up 3 deals later today, and all 3 of them are going to be fantastic, and the owners are going to appreciate and even give you a tip of appreciation for right. Your time today, though. We want to thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. And, you guys have been amazing and more fun than I could even imagine.
Well, we misintroduced you, but you were a leading scorer for the year and for certain games and games played, and in the Hall of Honor there at Santa Clara. You've been honored for that. As a coach, your winning percentage right at 65%. You've done that throughout the majority of your young life, and I think that was absolutely fantastic what you're able to do for college basketball in one small slice of it. And you've taken part in the history of it. So we want to honor you for that. And thank you for being on the show. And we want to thank you folks for paying attention and for listening and for being a part of it. This has been Take 5 with Steven Travers. So for Caren Horstmeyer and for Steven Travers, I'm Harper LeBel saying we appreciate you being a part of today's show. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you again.